I'm hoping that this tutorial will be very easy for beginners. I'm just going to be winging it, so you're going to see me kind of go through my process. So since it's Venice Challenge Week this week, I am going to paint this really pretty background sky and then add some darks for the buildings and some darks for the birds. Not much details, just basically simply tracing it and filling in, doing a beautiful wash for the sky. This photo I got on Unsplash by Luca McKelly. I'm sure I'm saying that incorrectly. It's a beautiful photograph. So first I'm going to take this image and tape it to my paper. I'm using Saunders Waterford 300-pound cold press paper, and I'm going to tape it here and then trace the image. So I've taped it to the board and I've got my graphite paper here. I'm not going to have you watch me go through my tracing, but it's as simple as just taking some kind of pen or pencil and just tracing the outline, adding some birds. I may not add all of them, but we'll see. Okay, I finished with my tracing. You'll see I didn't do all the birds, but that's because I got tired of doing them. So this is what I end up with for my outline. I did want to mark out a little bit here for the sun that comes through that steeple right there, and a couple of spots here that I will mask out later, but for now we are ready to start doing the wash for the sky. Okay, I've got my paints mixed up. I've got cobalt blue, quin sienna, what yellow is that? I think that is Aurelian, and this is alizarin crimson and perylene violet to help darken the reds towards the bottom. So before I do anything, I'm going to take this very, very thirsty brush here, this squirrel quill brush, and wet the back and the front of this. It's going to warp some, but it will straighten out, it'll flatten out when it dries, and if it still warps a little after it dries, I will flatten it again. Okay, the back is wet. Now we're going to wet the entire front. If the pencil smears some, I'm not worried about it. The sky's pretty dark. Everything is pretty dark here, so I just don't worry about pencil marks. I don't even worry if they are seen in the complete paint, the finished painting. Okay, I'm going to move it around here in the light so that you can see that everything is completely wet. I've got some puddles here, so I'm going to kind of spread it around some more because I don't want puddles. I just want it wet. Now since the back is wet and the front is wet, you can see that it's just gluing to the board here. That will keep it flat for me to paint. Okay, I'm going to let it sit here for about 5 minutes before I add my colors. I'm not going to have you wait, so I'll just be back. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes, and you still see a lot of shine on the paper because it's wet, but it's not like sopping wet. So now let's add some paint. I'm going to start at the top and add the cobalt blue. I've got it mixed up here. Make it darker at the top, and as it comes down, it will be lighter. You can use gravity to help you. I always like doing that. Just hold it up and let it come down. Now I don't want to add yellow like right here because yellow and blue make green. So I'm going to use a little of the Quin Sienna here. And then add some yellow. Ooh, that's bright. Let's tone that down some. I'm going to start adding some of this alizarin crimson, some of this perylene violet. That'll really help to make it dark. I'm not going to worry about this last piece down here because that's the water. Oops, I added some there. That's okay. I'm going to add some more of this yellow. I think I need darker blue up top. I'm going to kind of take that on down here, add some streaks of that blue here and there. If I mess with it too much, I'm going to end up with green. But that's okay. Add some more Quin Sienna. That's such a pretty color and it's transparent. Let it mix with that red. Oh yeah, that's pretty. Add some more blue at the top. I really want it darker at the top. And then I'm going to let gravity help here. Let it mix here. I dropped some water right here, so I'm just going to take a little drier brush and kind of smooth it out. I still think I need a little darker down here, so I'm going to add some more of the perylene violet. It really needs to be darker towards here at the bottom. I'm not worried about where the buildings are because that's going to be, I'm going to use a dark for that, so I'm not worried, just right here at the bottom. Just want it darker. I think I need more of the alizarin crimson. I still want it darker blue up here. Let me add more cobalt. There we go. I'm going to have to stop messing with it soon because as it's starting to dry, I'm going to end up with some hard lines and some crazy looking stuff, which I have a tendency to do. Okay, I think I'm just going to leave it as is. So before I walk away, and I have to force myself to walk away to let it dry, I'm going to soak up some of this from the edge, because if I don't, it's going to bleed back in there and it could leave a bloom. So I'm just taking a paper towel, getting some off just the edge, and it still may do that, but that's okay. I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, I'm going to pick up some of this down here in the water. I'm not really worried about it because the water is very dark. Okay, there it is. Now to walk away and stop fiddling with it. That's hard for me to do because I already see some other things I need to add to the sky, but I'm going to walk away. Okay, I went to the grocery store, put up groceries, cleaned the kitchen, and came back, and it was almost dry. So I took this heated tool. This is really nice. It's not too noisy. I'll turn it on so you can hear. And finished off drying it. This thing is really nice. It's great to take to workshops because it's not super noisy instead of hearing a bunch of hair dryers going. So there's a trick that I use that I've learned from someone, I have no idea who it was, to test paper to see if it's completely dry. And that's to get some paper that you know is dry. This is a pad of paper here, and put your wrist on it, and then put your wrist on the paper that you're wondering if it's dry. And if this is cooler, if the paper that has the paint on it is cooler than the plain paper, then it's still wet. Even if it's just a tad cooler, just wait, be patient, and let it dry. Okay, so I like how this turned out. The sky, this blue part of the sky needs to be darker, and I want to add a little bit more red down here. So what I'm going to do up here is add some phthalo blue, and then water it down just a little bit so it can have a gradation there. So let's do that. Oh yeah, that's dark. Now to add some water. Oops, I'm dropping water everywhere. Because I want it to get lighter coming down. I'm going to go down further than I probably need to, but I just don't want a hard line. So I just keep adding more clean water down here. Let's see, let's let gravity help some. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Have to hold it up, take a look at it. I think that'll be good there. I think I'm going to extend the clean water line a little bit further in case some paint wants to keep coming down. Okay, so working on the red here, I'm going to turn it around to make it a little bit easier to see, to work with. And I've got some Scarlet Lake right here, which is a little opaque. I added some water, of course. Let's see how dark this is. Do I have a scrap piece of paper around here? You would think. Okay, this is good enough. See, that's very, very bright. That's what I'm looking for, just to put right at the building line. And I'm not going to worry about about covering these lines because, oh yeah, that's bright. Because we've got the dark that's going to end up being around those buildings, or make those buildings. Now I'm adding clean water so we can get a smooth transition of color. And I'm going to keep going with the clean water. It's eventually going to meet the clean water from the top. Okay, it looks like it's met the clean water from the top. Okay, oh yeah, that's going to be much brighter. That's what I was looking for there. So we need to let this dry and then come back and start making the buildings and add the birds and the water. Okay, so while this is drying, I'm going to work on the water. If you look at the reference photo, the water is pretty dark with just a few highlights of some orangey color. So I'm going to do a dry brush with indigo, see how that goes, and I'll add some orangey stuff later. So for dry brush, I put some on my brush and I kind of take a lot of it off and then just make it go across the paper like this. It creates texture, and I don't usually do water very well with this, so we will see. Let me take a little off. Now, I'm not going to worry about getting in where the buildings are because that's going to have a dark color. Okay, this is working out pretty good. Dab a little of the color off. When I do dry brush doing water, I typically do too much. So I'm going to force myself to stop here. Someone needs to slap my hand because I kind of like all the highlights that are there. Okay, that's good. I'm going to add another layer of this later, but I'm going to let this dry for now. Okay, this first layer of dry brush is dry. So I'm going to put a little more concentrated paint here, less water, more pigment, and do another layer of the dry brush. Oh yeah, that's, oops, hold the paper. Pretty soon I'm gonna be in that area of doing too much. That's typically what I do, but I want some darker values here. Because the water in the photograph is really pretty dark. Right here at the edge of the deckled paper here, so that's not going to be seen in a frame anyway, in a mat. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to do with the water right now. So the water needs to dry completely before I start going in and doing the buildings, and I'm not sure that is completely dry. Not yet. I'll be back. Okay, the water is dry. The dry brush technique on here actually looks pretty good. So now I'm going to add just a little bit of color in there, just to reflect some of the sky color. So I'm going to use some of the Quin Sienna here and there. I'm not going to do too much. Ooh, that might be way too much. I can go over it with a glaze of indigo if this is all too bright. We'll see. Okay, now I want to use a little bit of the yellow. It's mixed with the Quin Sienna, that's okay. There was no white in the water. The highlights were all colors from the sky. Okay, let me add a little bit of this blue that we used in the sky. Well, that's a little too bright. That's a little too bright. Kind of dab it up. See, it's like it never happened. Okay, let's try some of this alizarin crimson. just kind of filling in the white spots here with color. Let's see, do I like that? Not sure I like that, but we'll see. I'll let it dry. When I add the darks here, I'll be able to tell whether this works with it or not, or if I need to do something different. I think it needs to be darker. So I'm going to take the risk of really messing it up. This is my process. I just kind of experiment, and I think I probably am doing too much. But the water really is dark in the photograph. Okay, I like that a little better. We'll see how it looks when I add the dark, but this needs to dry. Okay, so I think it is dry. So for the dark color, there are many ways to create a dark. Having all three primaries mixed together makes a dark. If you have alizarin crimson and phthalo green, those two make a very, very dark. But what I do is I have what I call a garbage bowl here. And whenever I paint a project and have leftover paint, I use these little dishes here. I will pour the paints in here and it will dry, which is fine. And then whenever I'm ready to paint some darks, I just reconstitute it with a wet brush and paint my darks. So let's see what dark I have here. This is, like I said, a mixture. I mean, see, that's very, very dark. I see a lot of indigo here. But that's how I do my darks. I just put all my leftover paints in here. I'm gonna add some more water in here because it's very, very thick. Stir it up. Okay, that's a good spreading consistency. Let's see, very dark. Okay, I'm gonna do the birds first because that's easy, or it should be easy. So I've got a real tiny brush here, but use whatever you have. This is a 000, and I'm just going to kind of go where the outlines are. Just some suggestions of a bird. Okay, I think that's good for the birds. Now I'm going to let that dry before I start doing this because I may want to turn that upside down to work on part of it. So let it dry. Okay, the birds are dry. They're not perfect, but I think you can tell they're birds. That's what counts. Okay, so now I'm going to start working on the buildings. Now there are a couple of places in the photograph that have the sky shining through, so you could use a little bit of masking fluid here in between those two support posts there, but I'm not going to because I'm lazy and I don't want to wait for the masking fluid to dry. So I'm going to try to paint around a couple of the spots to leave some of the background color, the sky color. Now this color that my garbage bowl, it's really pretty dark. So I imagine I might be able to get this with one layer. I'm not sure. We'll see. And I'm not going to stress about following this exactly, and if it's not perfectly inside the lines, I'm just not going to worry about it. Life's too short to worry about painting inside the line. Just paint. I have to turn it. See, I'm just not worried too much about the lines. Okay, here's a spot where I want to kind of leave a little bit of the background. You can see I'm not being perfect here. Perfection is overrated anyway, I think. If you want perfection, then just use a photograph. Okay, here's the big one here. There's a couple of spots where I want to leave some of that background, the sky color through. I'll come back and do the little steeple thingies. There's a couple of spots down here that were just very tiny. I don't think they belong there. I'm covering them up, just keeping the ones at the top. I'm going to come back with a tinier brush to do that top piece. This brush is just too big. I can't get too much detail there. I can do that one. It's real important to get the horizon line straight, and I'm sure mine isn't. Oh, it's not dry over here, so I'm just going to stop right here, let this dry. Oh no, I can go ahead and do the little the top pieces there. with my little tiny, tiny brush. Put a couple of more antenna thingies here and there, just for fun. I don't think that is connected well. Okay, let it dry. Walk away. This is where I want to fiddle some more, especially right here by the water. But I'm going to let it dry. Okay, so it's dry now. I think I can get by with just the one layer. It's very, very dark. Okay, so let's compare it to the reference photo here. I've got too much orange here. This needs to be darker. So I'm going to take this dark color here, my garbage bowl, and do some dry brush on the bottom here to darken it up some. And I hope that turns out okay. It just needs to be darker here. So let's see. It's too bright right there. That's a lot of paint. Simmer down, Diane. I may have done too much. Probably so. It's a little bright there. We just need just a little speck of the light here and there. This is how Diane overworks a painting. Okay, we're going to let that dry. I may dab up a little here and there. Paper towel is your friend. Okay, we're going to let this dry. Okay, the water is dry now. There's a couple of spots that are really pretty brightly colored, are bright water. Bright white. Can't even talk. I'm going to, let's see, what am I going to do? I took some of the paint that's in my garbage bowl and mixed it in with the yellows and the oranges, and I've got kind of this yucky brown, so that's not what I'm going to do. So let's take some of the Quin Sienna. Maybe that is good enough. I'm going to take some of the garbage paint, dab it, because it's a lot, and kind of go close to where I put that Quin Sienna, and just make some scribbly marks here. just overworking it right now. But hey, if you're good at something. Okay, I think I'm calling that done. Let me add a little bit more dark here at the edge here and at the horizon line. Okay, let's see what that looks like when it's dry, but I think I'm done. Okay, it's dry. I think it needs just a little bit more highlight, so I'm going to try to lift some of the paint. So I've got a round brush here. I don't want it to be super wet, but I want it to be wet, and I'm just going to go back and forth in a little area here and then dab it up with a clean paper towel. I'll find a spot that's clean and just add some lighter highlights here and there, just where I think it may need it. Not a whole lot gets lifted up, but enough that it does make a difference. This is really dark over here. Okay, let me see. Oh yeah, I think that it's still really light down here, but I think the matte will cover it. But since it's bothering me, I have to fiddle with it. So I'm just going to paint this bottom section here, the deckled edge, just because it's bothering me. It's distracting me. Okay, let's see. Oh, I like that orange coming through there, and there is some highlight of the sky down there. So let's see. Do I want to add? No, I don't want to add any blue. I want some more of my garbage paint because this is really light down here. Now I'm going to take a damp brush and kind of smooth it around. Okay, nobody is here with me, but someone needs to tell me to stop and walk away. I'm calling this done. So I hope this was something that you enjoyed doing. The colors are just so bright. Here is the reference photo. Mine does not look exactly like it, but that's not what I was going for. I was just using this as a reference to create my own. The photograph is done by this person, Luca Michelli. I know I'm saying it wrong. Off of Unsplash. Such a gorgeous photograph. Oh my gosh. So I hope this was helpful, and I look forward to seeing your paintings of this.